Okay. Okay, let's go. So yeah, thanks for coming to my session. But I usually don't get many attendees at Java conferences because there are not so many open source contributors at Java conferences, and there are even less community maintainers and people who are interested in open source community management. So question to you, do you do open source community management or just interested? Okay, that's okay. Have you ever seen a roadmap for an open source project? Yeah, that's also a problem I'm going to talk about because yeah, not all of them have them. Okay, so I want to briefly talk about roadmaps, communities, and actually experiences we had in Jenkins and other projects. So I guess you know Jenkins. Okay, so this is something everybody knows. Well, I'm a Jenkins core maintainer, so just in case, sorry. I also contribute to many other projects. And yeah, I'm a community builder, consultant, and I actually spent quite a lot of time building communities. What you may have not noticed, I just joined Gradle, so we actually updated the description of this talk just 2 hours ago or so. But yes, I'm with Gradle, so if you're interested in Gradle, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback about how it works, let me know. And yeah, my slides are also available, so I won't be spending too much time on slides, and actually the full version of slides is available on speaker deck right away. So if you want to serve, just do that. I hope it works. Okay, so yeah, I spent something like 10 years of my career building open source communities. I started with Jenkins, and how it happened when you're a maintainer, when you need to expand your project, eventually you start doing everything. Social media, project management, technical partnerships, and of course you want to attract more and more contributors, and it includes company contributors, individual ones, so basically you become a jack of all trades. And this is exactly my career path. So I started in the Jenkins community, then I spent some time in LibreCourse, it's open hardware project. I contributed to the Continuous Delivery Foundation, to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I specifically talk on observability topics. And recently I spent time with WireMock, test containers, and now it's a Gradle community. Do you recognize any logos from here? Okay, again, this is a Java conference. But yeah, OpenFeature is quite a big thing in observability domain, in the CNCF, so it's basically feature flag management, and most likely use test containers for your integration tests. If so, yeah, happy to talk. Okay, so one example of such community is Jenkins. It has become very huge, so it has more than 2,500 repositories, it has more than 5,000 contributors. But in this project, like in many other projects, we had very difficult time aligning contributions and actually onboarding new contributors. And it led to many problems you might have seen as a user. So Jenkins basically has no single community per se, it has many isolated sub-communities. Some are interested in job DSL, some are interested in code coverage, some do configuration as code, but historically there was not that much communications between each others. So is something going on with my microphone? Because it look on, is it okay? Okay. Okay, yeah, and of course nobody knew what exactly happens in the project. So when you have 2,500 repositories, some bug trackers, so in our case it was Jira, some GitHub issues, not that much communication. Many people were just doing internal stuff. For example, there are company maintainers like Sonar, JFrog, who maintain their plugins. There are some issue trackers, but whether they're aligned with what they're actually doing, you never know. In such communities, you usually do not see much focus. You can grumble, oh, it's a legacy tool, 15 years old, it doesn't develop well, we don't know where it's going, which might be a case. And also, sometimes you may think that there are vendor lock-in. Actually, in many communities, it's not true, but it comes from the fact that there is only limited number of contributors, usually from vendor companies who try to keep things afloat, who struggle on their own, but at the same time, they don't know how to build communities. And it actually leads to two problems. So firstly, there are many people who want to contribute, but they do not know where to contribute. They cannot find a proper place when they submit an issue, a pull request, nobody responds because everyone is overloaded. Sometimes pull requests come just to an area when nobody cares about because the project has a different vision. And at the same time, the projects have difficulties with actually attracting contributions to areas they're interested in. So for example, you have a new big project, let's say Jenkins pipeline as code, supporting Java 21 in your project. You have 1,000 members in the community, but only 5 contributors come and actually start participating in the discussions about this topic. And this is a problem because it limits scalability of the community. And one of the biggest things that with such arrangement, it's difficult to attract company contributors. And for many big projects, you need company contributors to succeed. Because just in one person, yeah, even if they're very dedicated, they can spend maybe 100 hours a week. Not for long, because they will burn out. But it's not enough for many projects, and this is something you need to keep in mind. So many communities hit these problems in different ways, and actually one of common approaches how they try to resolve it. Yes, some contributor companies hire community managers, some people start doing more social media outreach programs like Google Summer of Code. But another way, which is quite popular, is actually becoming more public about what you are doing. And the theory is that if you're public, then people know what happens. More people are interested to contribute because they actually see what happens now, what will happen soon, and what will happen in the future. So they may align their plans, they may find a way to contribute, etc. So this is what we did in Jenkins. This is what many other projects did. And yeah, this is just a common example of roadmap. Who does manage roadmaps in the companies? Okay, one person. Is your roadmap up to date? Okay, so yeah, this is what happens always. So you have something, it looks perfect, it's informative, but just 3 months later or 2 years later, it's just a tumbleweed going through a bunch of obsolete tickets. And it doesn't help you, it doesn't help your users, everyone get confused, and this is something you want to avoid. So in Jenkins, we basically hit the same. Initially, the roadmap was quite a big success. We announced it along with graduation in the Continuous Delivery Foundation. We got a lot more contributors. We got company contributors starting things like, for example, Jenkins operator for Kubernetes. We achieved a lot in UX redesign, in code coverage initiatives, etc., etc. And we actually got quite a lot of traction thanks to that. But what didn't really work? In longer term, we weren't able to attract or retain any company contributor thanks to publicity, thanks to trying to do technical partnerships for particular initiatives. It worked in the short term, but without day-to-day facilitation, and actually failed. Community marketing, actually, roadmap became a negative thing because people go, people see something obsolete, people complain, and nobody really responds. And this is what happened with us. So a few challenges, probably quite common in any company or open source project. Yes, there is a buzz factor. There are only a few people who can do something and who care about something. There are inconsistencies because many people perceive things differently. In open source, it's normal to start many projects in parallel, experimental ones. Then some of them survive, some not. And this is what happens. But from end user standpoint, it's difficult to understand what the heck is going on. Some projects never succeed, so I guess most of us have a lot of abandoned pull requests, a lot of abandoned pet projects, and much more purchased domains and IDs we will try to implement next weekend. So this is what happens, and this creates issues in open source setting too. At the same time, roadmap might be easily bloated because when you start going things. So in Kanban, we say that 4 or 5 items is a top you should have work in progress. If you have 2,500 repositories, it's impossible to keep the number low. So if you properly do things, you're likely to end up with many issues, too many issues to actually recognize and sort without additional effort. And many initiatives still do not get there because most of contributors wouldn't really care to put it on somewhere on the repository, etc. So in Jenkins, this is just a recent screenshot. So over the past year, roadmap got 3 contributions. And this roadmap is effectively stale, outdated. I can show you it if you want. So let's see whether it works. It's my first time on Mac after 5 years, so please bear with me. And yeah, this is basically a roadmap. The current state, is it big enough? Yeah, so what you can see in current, there is actually not so many things are going on, and things that in current might be a bit confusing, because there is UX revamp, which was announced with big boom, with a lot of fanfares in 2021. There were other things like migrating documentations to GitHub, which is done, which we have engines for that. There are other things like cloud events, which is again something fully supported in Jenkins by now. There are some preview things which are ages old, like let's say Jenkins file runner, Java 17 support, which is J at the moment. So basically this roadmap is outdated and confusing. So if I, as a contributor, go there, I have no idea what this is. Then near term is basically empty. There are some things like custom work packager. It's my project. It's half abandoned by me for now, unfortunately. And this is also a thing that creates issues. And this is where we get if we do not maintain the roadmap. Okay, it starts from the right side. So what I'm showing to you is definitely not a success story, but also what I want to say that you may actually have a success story if you approach properly. So the thing with roadmap is that it's not that simple as it may look like. So roadmap, yeah, it's quite a general term. It may have a lot of different appearances, but basically it's something that communicates to different parties what you're about to doing. And these parties might be different. We'll talk about it later. So roadmap, it can have different representations. It doesn't have to be a massive board. And if you're doing a massive board, most likely you're doing it wrong right away. So one thing, so this is a perfectly valid roadmap by the Continuous Delivery Foundation, probably created in PowerPoint, but it shows what actually goes on. This is GitHub's public roadmap. Yeah, it's exactly a massive dashboard, but at least it has labels, etc. So a dedicated person could probably find out what's going on. Then you can just have text, and actually this way is underestimated because it provides quite a lot of information in a human-friendly form, and it's flexible enough so you can put everything you need. And you can try doing your own roadmap. So for example, in Jenkins, our roadmap is basically a YAML file that has a lot of JavaScript around it that provides fancy representation. Yes, you can click on the button, you will have a pop-up describing the issue, etc. So we wasted quite a lot of time on that because nobody really uses it. So these are multiple approaches, all of them legit, assuming they're properly maintained and supported. When you build a roadmap, one thing that you should start from, and this is what we actually did quite well in Jenkins, is defining your target audience. So do you target end users, or do you want to target your contributors, developers of your project, your internal team? So maybe your product manager wants to communicate something to stakeholders of your company, and they want to use open source roadmap for that. Or maybe you want to explain what is going on to consumers. For example, if you maintain Spring Boot, etc., you need to communicate to downstream projects what happens. And last but not least, there are vendors who try to earn money on your project, and despite what's being said these days, there is nothing wrong on earning money in open source projects. It's perfectly valid, and people still need to understand what is going on, because if you can involve vendors, it's actually a big win for you if they start contributing upstream. So the roadmaps, they have to be, well, what we were doing, they are community driven, so we decided that everything in roadmap, everything in the process is public, so there is no special credentials needed for that, no Jenkins board member status, no being employed by someone, etc. It worked quite well, and we actually built a transparent process. It's documented in Jenkins enhancement proposal. It's a massive document. I'm not describing it, but our key point was that we never commit on delivery. And if you operate in open source, probably it's something you need to consider, because in open source projects, basically everything depends on the contributors. And for me, the whole goal was to show that there are activities we're interested in, and if there are contributions, they will succeed. If not, they won't. So for us, it has never been a commitment on time, and this is what I wouldn't recommend. And speaking of times, there are different ways to communicate on the roadmap. Sometimes you put dates. This is what companies do. Sometimes they even hit the dates, but in the open source community, I think that is completely harmful. And instead of that, you should be just saying that, yeah, there are some horizons. So for example, this is something we are currently working on. This is something you can already try, preview. That's something we want to start working on in short term, and we are looking for contributors and stakeholders. And then there is future, which is a bunch of big ideas, which is somebody welcome to take and drive, but nothing is really going to happen right now. So this is what would be good. And again, never commit on the deadlines on the times. Another thing that I learned from the open source community, that roadmap is actually not just about features, because healthy community also has documentation, they have project infrastructure, they have community, they have events, and if you want to facilitate these efforts, you put everything on the roadmap. And actually this was one of the most successful things, because we were able to attract more mentors for outreach initiatives like Google Summer of Code or self-hosted programs. We also achieved quite a lot in developer tooling, because Jenkins itself and other projects, they have massive amount of internal tools, whether there are parent POMs, whether they depend about like things before depend about what the thing, whether they're integration testing tools. So all of that also needs maintainers, contributors, and it's a great place to participate, because usually there are new technologies, and every time people come tinker with something, yeah, it's a much cooler space to be in than let's say automation infrastructure in an enterprise. So many contributors actually spend just to tinker with the new stuff. So I don't have much time, so I want to briefly explain on these topics we experienced. Are you interested, or should we just fast forward? Okay, first thing, buzz factor. So in Jenkins, buzz factor was me, because I created these roadmaps, I maintained these roadmaps, and now I'm on sabbatical because of the war in Ukraine and volunteering efforts, so I changed my priorities. So now nobody really maintains it, and basically it stopped working. So that's easy, do not do it. Usually ensure that there is sustainability. There is a lot of talks on that. There are not so many open source communities that are successful about it. Another one, yes, consistencies. So roadmap definitely needs a kind of regular review. Most likely a big project has a technical steering committee body, whatever it's named, and this is a great place. Also, there are special interest groups, working groups, and all of them can build their roadmaps, so you can build a hierarchical roadmap for a project. So, stalled processes, well, more publicity, review, and make sure to close the projects when they don't go well. Roadmap load, filters, categories, etc. So if you have ever seen GitHub roadmap with a lot of recent features, this is what you have to do. And this actually saves a lot of time. And for more roadmap initiatives, just embrace them, because people don't have to contribute to your process if they're not interested. So just let that happen, and just help to track what can be done. So if I was doing the roadmap in 2023, my recommendations to you would be, firstly, keep it simple. So instead of building a new tool, use your social coding platform, and actually avoid creating new content. Just use existing issues, use existing tickets, use existing frameworks to show that, because otherwise you're likely to fail, because it will be massive maintenance overhead. So of course, in open source, it's most likely GitHub or GitLab or maybe Codeberg, etc. But all of them have views like that. So this is something you are most likely interested to use if you do it properly. Who does use GitHub projects these days? Okay, so GitHub Projects is actually a really cool thing. It has a lot of limitations, but it's good for roadmaps. It provides a really good user experience for smaller projects. For example, you can just put GitHub issues and you can see them here. You can have filters like tabs, labels. You can navigate across all of them. And if you could just click a button, your issue will open. So there is no magic. And this is something you should be probably using. Yep, just 5 seconds. Okay, and yeah, limitations, yeah, there are quite a lot of them, but in your project, it's most likely what you want to use. And again, avoid roadmap view of GitHub, because it's not a roadmap you want to have in open source. It's not a good design, and this is not something you should do. So key takeaways. Roadmaps take efforts, but they can actually help you if used properly. And roadmaps must not be schedules. For that, there is a lot of tools, and use these tools, but key item, just keep the things as simple as possible and leverage your existing bug tracker, your existing GitHub issues. And if you're interested after the talk, I can show you a few examples from my projects that I consider doing things right. Okay, and thanks a lot for your time. Yeah, so sorry for overrunning a bit, but I guess we have a break afterwards, right?